This is Internet Marketing.
Hello and welcome to the Internet Marketing Podcast. My name is Kelvin Newman. We've got a really interesting episode lined up for you today. So me and the team behind brightonSEO are really pleased to welcome our guests to today's show. That is Amanda Jordan and Greg Gifford. And we're going to be talking about what's next in local marketing. They're real experts in the subject. And I had a lovely time speaking to them, learning about what they think is coming next. If you've got any kind of local aspect to your marketing. So I'm very pleased to be joined by two people I'm huge fans of. They're both their work and kind of the speaking and all kinds of ways in which they share their knowledge and experience online. We're going to be talking a bit about kind of link building, a little bit about local link building and sort of some of those areas. But before we get into the detail of what we're going to cover, I always like to get my guests to sort of provide the backstory so you can understand a little bit about them, how they came to be here today, and sort of what are some of their areas of interest and expertise. I'm going to come to Amanda first, if that's all right. Can you tell us the Amanda story?
Sure. I've been working in SEO since 2011. Started as a copywriter and made it all the way up to a director of digital strategy. So it's been very fun to do. The vast majority of my experience has been with local businesses, everything from small to franchise, enterprise level businesses. So wide breadth of experience and also wide breadth of industries that I work with, everything from medical, financial, and legal to home services as well. Been a lot of fun. I love SEO strategy. It's my favorite part of what I do, and thinking about like, hey, what's coming up next for a local SEO and trying to stay on the edge of what's going on instead of getting left behind.
Fantastic. And I'm always interested in that kind of like, what was the route to where you end up? Because often like when we're talking to people on this podcast, it'll be, they're kind of doing quite broad strategy roles or kind of responsible for big teams. I think it's always interesting to kind of know what was that first one in. So the kind of copywriting as well. And I had a degree of, before I was starting in journalism, and that's kind of my route in. And it's like, I think that kind of sort of sometimes shapes my experience as well. So fascinated to hear that story there as well. And I'm sure we'll dive into some of that experience and lessons that you've learned along the way, Amanda. Greg, how about yourself?
I'm Greg Gifford. I started doing SEO like 2 weeks ago, so I'm not sure why I got invited to this. No, I've been doing it for, longer than I can even remember. It's been forever. But if we want to talk about the route to get there, I actually got into SEO because back in the day when Flash was a big thing for websites, I had a Flash website design company and the content wasn't showing up in Google. And so we figured out how to get it to show up in Google, not realizing that we were doing very nefarious cloaking things. And that's kind of how I fell into figuring out how Google works. And it kind of just took off from there. And now I am lucky enough to get to speak at a lot of conferences like brightonSEO and go all over the world and share my knowledge and help other people in their careers be better at what they do.
And I know you've obviously both talked there about that kind of experience of local, and I know that's kind of like areas that you're kind of, known for and renowned for in those spaces. What are some of the things that have been going on like recently in local that you think are sort of that people need to be on there? I'll come to you first, Amanda, in terms of, things that are sort of maybe shifting, because it feels to me, I'm not in the local scene all day, every day. It feels like it feels quite dynamic, even compared to, it's a thing that changes a lot, but it feels like there's a lot been changing over the last year or two.
Yeah, local is a spot where there's a lot changing on a very regular basis. I would say more so like to the point that I think a lot of local SEOs, like we see that there's an algorithm update and we're like, I was kind of seeing what they were doing already, because we are very competition driven because we're fighting for actual dollars and actual clients coming to our website versus someone else's. It's not just that we want people to get to the website so that we can get ad revenue from them. It's like we need them to take actual actions. And the more times we have someone going to a competitor and they're going to take an actual action, the less money that our client makes. So it's like extremely competitive. So we're very like hyper aware of pretty much when anything changes in SEO, because we're just always on top of it because we have to be. I don't think like as far as things have changed, they don't necessarily scare me, because of the like I am seeing like this shift in SEO being more like contextual relevance versus just like let's just write a bunch of content. Like it's things like that everyone has been focused on previously. I think one of the biggest things I've seen is just the landscape of search results changing a lot for local businesses, where that local pack is being pushed down further and further. That's especially happening a lot for law firms. We've seen that happen significantly for them, where that local pack is almost at the bottom of the page. So now organic visibility is becoming extremely important for them, because they're local, like even if they're in a local pack, it's at the bottom of the page. So how much value does that have? Because people aren't looking for the closest lawyer, they're looking for the best one they can get. So
and I suppose, and local, like as a type of search result, feels like it's one that was like one of the earliest to have the more interesting features, the changing of features, the testing of features. I suppose you're probably more accustomed to that than perhaps some of the sectors that are kind of like perhaps were the 10 blue links for longer, perhaps. Is that something you've seen, Greg, in terms of that kind of, do you feel like the people working in local are kind of perhaps, maybe not necessarily, well, they might be better equipped for it, but certainly more comfortable with there not being one definitive set of how a search result presents itself?
I think not everybody. I think there are still the algorithm chasers and the silver bullet SEOs that do local. But I mean, Amanda works at Rickety Roo. They're very similar to us in philosophy of how we approach things. And we have a real marketing approach to the clients that we work with. Both of us do. She's nodding because she knows. There are people out there that they'll just take money to like throw some content up and call it a day. And then, we put a post on your Google business profile, so we do local SEO. But I think those of us that have that more kind of holistic, customized approach to doing local SEO for their clients, we're less worried about these big algo updates. Because a lot of the time, the people that freak out about, oh my gosh, there was just a big algorithm update, it's because they're always chasing the algorithm and they're trying to just do the little tricky things to get their sites to show up, where agencies like Amanda's and mine, we're actually doing real marketing and we're trying to get our client sites to show up because they actually deserve to be there, not because we put a keyword in the right place on 5 different pages. So I don't think that most of us that operate that way are as affected by these algorithm updates. And it's also funny too, because the traditional SEO people freak out about these algorithm updates, and they don't realize all the crazy changes that local goes through, like all the changes that have happened with Google business profiles and how those are edited and the features that get added in and how the entire editing interface switched from a dashboard to an in-search editing experience. Like these are major life-changing updates for anybody that does local SEO. And these happen all the time for us. And there have been a ton in the last few years that all the traditional people are like, well, when's the next helpful content update? We're like, forget that stuff. We got way other crazy changes that we have to worry about.
Yeah.
Sorry, Maddie, are you going to say something there? Or, in terms of, I think that it's interesting that you say that. And it's like kind of that broader marketing, locals are a prism via which they can access your marketing, but you need to be thinking about it in a broader sense. What are some of the things that might entail? What are some of the work, the things that you might be doing that perhaps might not immediately seem to be the kind of thing that would help local search results listings, but you think are kind of stuff that like actually a business that's got some kind of local presence should be doing? Is there particular things that jump out that you're regularly sort of suggesting that might not immediately appear to people who are familiar with local, that's a thing that would, be on your checklist or be on your to-do list that you're talking to people about?
So you're talking things that people that don't do local would be surprised
about?
Yeah,
I mean, what's that? Because you talked about that broader marketing, right? So the things that are like, it's more than just like chasing that. What are some of the things that kind of would fall into that category of the kind of, marketing that's maybe got a more holistic and rounded approach that's going to potentially be influencing your local search results?
Well, Amanda works, we very rarely overlap in the clients that we serve because we both kind of hit different verticals. So she may have a different answer, but for us, we work with a ton of car dealers because for years I was primarily in agencies that only worked with car dealers. And just for us, like a lot of clients are shocked when we get on an onboarding call and say, all right, why are you doing this SEO thing? What are your business goals? Where a lot of other people just go, hey, you signed up for SEO. I'm just going to go follow my checklist and do my checklist stuff. And it may not even align with the goals that the business owner has. And so the fact that we sit down at the beginning before we do any work and say, hey, what are your goals? What's important to you? What do we need to do to drive more business? to help you, because it's not always the things that you think it would be. And, we do a lot of stuff with not just like, let's go churn out some BS content. It's let's create content around the things that matter to you to gain more visibility, because so many people out there follow the checklist, and you're creating content around topics that business already ranks number one for. What's the point of creating more stuff? Spend your time customizing your approach to gain more visibility in the areas where you don't have visibility. And then also, I've heard this for forever at conferences, but it seems like people forget it's easier to get more conversions out of the traffic that you're already getting than to get new traffic. So look at how to make the site flow easier, make it easier for people to find stuff on the site, reorganize the site, better internal linking, better calls to action, or fewer calls to action, because sometimes you have like these car dealers that'll have 15 call to action buttons on every vehicle and people get overwhelmed. So it's taking a step back, taking the marketing blinders off and thinking, what is it like to come to this website and buy this product or service if I've never bought it before? And I think that's an approach that a lot of people that just, I know I'm friends with a lot of the Rickety Roo people. I know we're very similar. We just don't do things that way, but I know a lot of agencies do. And sometimes I think people forget the basics of, hey, like, it's not just about showing up number one. If your website sucks and it's not going to convert, it doesn't matter. Let's think about what we're doing and provide the answers to the questions that people are asking.
Yeah, and I suppose that's it. Have you found that, Amanda? Is it kind of obviously like car dealerships? I know you do more than that, Greg, but like using that as an example is like it's quite a specific type of website. It's quite a specific type of intent. Obviously like a legal firm or a franchise that could be quite different. Do you find, but it's still the same, where it's like they might have come to you with a like search brief or a search kind of aspiration, but actually sometimes it's that taking that step back, and you're going to have a search prism, you're going to have a search frame of reference, but actually it's maybe, they might have come for you for that broader marketing, but that's sometimes what they need.
Yeah, that's something that we see a lot of the time. Some of the clients we have, like, they came to us asking, like, how do I get more links? And the answer is, what are you doing in your community that would allow other businesses to want to interact with you to provide you with more links? That's the answer. I think a lot of it is related to like understanding the context of SEO, and that is just part of a marketing ecosystem. It is not the entire ecosystem. And all of these things are related to each other and impact each other. And if you're not looking at these other things, you're missing opportunities. Like I've heard SEO say like conversion rate optimization isn't really part of SEO. But if your client's goal is to get more leads and they're using SEO to get more leads, then converting on the site is part of SEO. We actually have a case study that one of my team members did, Celeste Gonzalez, that's on Microsoft Clarity's blog, where she installed Clarity, looked at how people were interacting with the website, and was able to increase conversions by 122%. So taking the information that we already have, taking the traffic we already have and converting it can be just as powerful as going out and making links and creating new content, because making changes to a website that you already own, already have access to, and you already know what you need to change, you can do that in a couple hours. And if you can increase your conversion rate in a couple of hours, then why are you creating all this content that doesn't serve an actual purpose? So like just thinking about it from a perspective of like, am I really being the best steward of like my clients' money, of their business, because they're depending on you to help them grow. That business is success for organic is your success for organic too. So if you're not meeting that bottom line influence, then you're not really doing what they hired you to do. Because one of the things that we do, like a lot of stuff that Greg said, things that we do, like one of our questions we ask clients is, why do you deserve to rank? That is like one of our onboarding questions. And the other one is like, what are your revenue goals? Because that is what we're driving. Like our goal is to drive revenue. If we're not doing that, then it's not working. We'll often find that things that are just like best practices for SEO doesn't necessarily mean we get more conversions. So we're more worried about the conversions than we are about just ranking for random things or just ranking for a keyword that allegedly has a lot of search volume. If that keyword doesn't convert, doesn't matter to us as much as something that will convert or has a better likelihood of converting. So like our perspective, I think, is a bit different than a lot of SEOs, because like we're testing and validating and verifying what's working versus depending on, well, Google said this, Google said that. Like I honestly don't care what Google says. Like whatever is working is what's working.
This.
I only care what Google says when it validates something that I've already found. That's the only time I'm like, yep, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm like, eh.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's interesting as well. Yeah, I'm not always sure that, like, and this isn't meant as a criticism. It's like it's a complex ecosystem, right? And it's I think sometimes it's hard for the search engines to know, like, kind of quite what's actually having impact.
Exactly.
Or like you think of that thousands of locations, thousands of types of business, and you multiply that out, and there's like each of those is a fairly unique context, right? Where it's a combination of what those businesses are doing, how they operate. And I know, Amanda, you've got a talk coming up at MozCon in terms of kind of leveraging events and cultural and local landmarks. That's obviously going to be very unique to each set of circumstance. Could you explain a little bit more about kind of that? Like, is that kind of more in that deserving to rank being part of the community? Is that sort of the direction that's headed in?
Yes, that is the direction that it's heading in. And it's thinking about, like, what is the future of search, not the future of Google? Because the future of search is, am I contextually relevant to anything someone is using to search for my business? And if you're not, if you're depending on what Google says, you may be missed by some of these things that are coming up. Like there's just this week, there was evidence that Bing is starting to take more of Google's search usage. Like Bing is getting used more often. We're going to see that, I think, split happen more often, where other things are used for search more than Google as AI. I hate using that term at all or mentioning it all, but as that as that grows and develops, search is going to change too, and not just on Google, but just how people search, how people think about finding information. And you need to be everywhere to do that. And if you're just thinking about what are the things I'm doing on my website or what's on my Google business profile, you are like missing the forest for the trees for sure. So I was thinking about SEO as part of the larger marketing ecosystem, not just as a standalone part of your business marketing. And the best way to do that is just to be like legitimate in your marketing efforts and not try to game it. Like if you're doing like, if you're a pizza place and you have the best pizza in the city, everyone is writing reviews saying you have the best pizza in the city, then you start ranking in lists for best pizza in X city. You did not do anything with your SEO to get that to happen. It was like word of mouth marketing, but it's impacting your SEO because of all of these people who are giving you credibility. And I think that's the way that it's going to be going all together, is that it's not going to be like as much of a silo as we treat it now.
Mm. And I suppose that's again about those basic sort of hygiene factors, which are the things that could be preventing someone from this, appearing. And then you get those right, which you would hope more and more people have. And over time, the systems get better at understanding, and like generally, websites get, a local business website now would be, I think quite a lot better than it was 5 years ago, and potentially quite a lot better than it was 10 years ago. That almost becomes harder to stand out then. And then it's about, what can you do to be the best, but also with a slight tweak of maybe how you frame things to kind of present that in a way that's going to, that's friendly or easy for the search engines to understand that context, I suppose.
Right.
Greg, you were kind of, Amanda was talking there about like potentially a post Google or maybe not post Google. That's maybe a bit over dramatic, but kind of where the share of attention might shift over a period of time. Is that something that you're preparing for, or is it like actually to some extent maybe what you're doing, it needs to be holistic enough that it's it'll work for, if I don't know, ChatGPT or whatever the OpenAI's product is or whatever Bing pull in to do that? Do you think that it's kind of actually almost the mindset of a search marketer is good, but actually the detail of it sometimes is less important?
And like something that she said earlier kind of resonates with me, where it was, I'm trying to think of how you said it, but basically the point being, we don't freak out about algorithm updates because we're doing holistic marketing. And I think the people that are really worried about AI and SGE are the people that are the silver bullet SEOs. They're doing link building because they think link building matters. And then Gary says, oh, links aren't as important anymore. And all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, now we don't have to get links. They didn't say it wasn't important. They said it wasn't as important, which we all knew that anyway. And everybody freaks out. Oh, what about SGE? What about SGE? Well, like, I think in local, we're a little bit more isolated from that. Oh, she was talking about people looking for lawyers and how it was further down the page. And people aren't just looking for a lawyer. They're looking for the best lawyer. I think in local, we see that a lot in every vertical. You're not just looking for an answer. You're looking for an answer that meets your qualifications, whatever those qualifications might be. So for the businesses are like, hey, you sell toilet paper. Okay, SGE might matter to you, right? But for local, there's never going to be a situation where you're going to say, I want to go, like, hey, we're all in Seattle in a couple of weeks or in a month. And we're not going to go, hey, let's go figure out a place to go eat breakfast and get one answer from whatever AI assistant we have. It's always going to be, well, here's a couple of choices for you based on your, even if it's down to my personal history. Well, Greg, based on your personal history and the sorts of things you like to eat, here's 4 or 5 options for you. And here's the reviews for those places. And here's some photos for those places. Because I'm still going to need to choose which one I want. Even though I've been to Seattle a million times over the last 15 years, and anything on Google that tracks my location knows I'm going to eat at Biscuit Bitch at least once when I'm in Seattle. And she's laughing because she's been with me. And literally I was telling Kelvin the other day on LinkedIn or something that he had to come eat with us there this time. Even though the assistant or whatever powers that thing would say, well, every time you go to Seattle, you always eat at Biscuit Bitch. It's still going to say, but here's some other options. So I think in local, we're a little less worried about the AI apocalypse because the nature of the kind of clients that we serve always means people are going to have to be served a list of choices in whatever format search is occurring. Or on whatever platform search is occurring.
And I suppose hopefully then actually what the tools or the technology might allow is actually to try and help the right businesses find the right customers. Because I suppose that's the difficulty at the moment is everyone's competing for the generic customer. And actually, my version of best restaurant in Seattle is different to someone else's version of best. And actually for the business, they only want the people who it's going to be a good fit for, right? They want the people, it's not just, they want everyone. They want the people who are going to be good customers. Oh, it's an interesting way of thinking about it. And I never really quite framed it in that way before. So I always like to ask our participants in the podcast if there's a particular resource, be it a book, a website, a presentation, a video, something that they kind of recommend people should go and check out that they've seen recently that they'd like to recommend to our listeners. I'll come to you first, Greg. Is there anything in particular that kind of stands out to you that it could be yours, it could be someone else's, it could be just sort of something that's on your radar?
Well, I always like to tell people, since we have been talking about local, I have a local SEO weekly video series. It comes out every Tuesday morning US time, called Local Search Tuesdays. And so it's usually short 3 to 5 minute clips on one specific tactic or element of strategy for local SEO. But I also do share conference presentations. So like coming back from a conference a week or two later, I'll share my entire presentation from that conference because I'm just trying to have a single kind of source of, hey, if you want to learn local SEO, here's a great place to go. And there's years of videos that you can go back through and watch and learn. So if you're curious about these things or curious about updates that are happening, I feel like I'm pretty on top of stuff that happens within local. And I always like to recommend that.
Cool. That sounds good. And how about yourself, Amanda?
Yeah, I would recommend a Rickety Roo blog. So ricketyroo.com/blog. So that's the place that I would recommend for sure from our team, because I'm just one of many extremely smart people working there that have put together strategies that have specialties, things that they're extremely passionate about. And we have the ability to really pursue those things in the ways that we want to. So there's lots of really interesting information there from other members of our team as well.
Fantastic. So I'll make sure we drop them in the show notes. But if anyone's just listening and on the go, hopefully they've been able to pick up those places as well. So Amanda, if people want to kind of keep in contact with you or kind of be aware of what you're up to, any particular preferred social network, or is it to go to the Rickety Roo website? What's the best way of people keeping up with what you're up to?
Yeah, LinkedIn, Amanda Jordan. There was at some point I did have like an alligator in my name. I think I may have removed that. But LinkedIn, Amanda Jordan. I will be at MozCon this year, and I will also be at Brighton SEO in San Diego. So you can come see me speak at either one of those. Both of my topics are local, and there are two things that we touched on today. So it would be really interesting.
And how about yourself, Greg?
So I still kind of use Twitter, even though it's pretty much dying. But really, best place is probably LinkedIn. I'm trying to be better about checking LinkedIn or Search Lab website, blog is great. I will also be at Brighton SEO in San Diego. I'll be at Brighton SEO in Brighton in October as well. I'll be at MozCon, but I'm not speaking this time. But I'm running the local SEO Birds of a Feather table for anybody that wants to join and have some fun chats there. Cool. Also, if you are going to be attending either Brighton in October in Brighton or Brighton SEO in San Diego in November, I'm teaching the local SEO training class the day before. So that's an all-day class about all things local, and I definitely suggest taking that if you're able to go.
Fantastic. Well, thanks both for sharing all that knowledge. Big fans of yours. Obviously, I could happily talk for hours and hours, but I think, I hope our listeners took so much away from that. I know I did. And certainly made me think about a few things in local slightly differently to how I did beforehand. So thanks so much for joining us. Thanks everyone for listening or viewing. And we'll see you again soon in a future episode. Thanks both. Thanks so much for joining us for today's episode of the Internet Marketing Podcast, produced by the team behind Brighton SEO, the world's largest specialist digital marketing conference covering SEO, PPC, paid social, web analytics, and content marketing. If you want to find out more about us and the show, you can check out the website, internetmarketingpodcast.org. And if you've not already subscribed to the show, you should hit that subscribe button. And can I ask a favour, if you are subscribed and you're enjoying the show, can you leave us a review wherever you're watching or listening to the show? And if you want to get in touch, become a guest on the show, or just generally feedback about what we're doing, you can always email me. That's kelvin@brightonseo.com. So KELVIN@brightonseo.com. Or, of course, you can contact me on social media. So at LinkedIn or Twitter, my usernames are Kelvin Newman. See you soon.